So the streets are talking, Victor.
Hey,
Get him, daddy.
don't you walk on me.
Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, Brandon, how you doing?
Good.
How was your trip back?
Not bad. Long flight.
You go out there a lot?
No, I just travel the country, really. I never been that far west before, though. I mean, I've been to Alaska fishing, but never that far for work.
Nice.
Yeah, it's different. I went fishing last night. I'm just coming back now, so I'm going to be in the car.
Okay. Where were you, out east?
Yeah, out in Montauk. It's pretty slow, pretty shitty. Some small fish.
How long were you fishing for?
I did like sunset to sunrise pretty much. Hopped around a few spots.
Do you ever fish during the day at all, or is it mainly a night thing?
I fish during the day, especially this time of year where you get those blitzes and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
And then there's a bite in the spring too, around end of May, beginning of June, where you'll get them on top waters on the south side, the rocks. That's like a sunrise, sunset thing too.
That's cool. So how long have you been doing this on such a hardcore level?
So I would say like 2016. I probably got my license like 2015, my driver's license. And 2016, I think, was the first year I started really wetsuiting out there. My parents used to take me when I was younger, like fishing out there in general. But I never obviously wetsuited until, I started getting into it and going out there by myself. And I went to Paulie's a lot. He was a big inspiration for me and helping me get started out there. And I kind of took off from there. I went pretty, hard the first year, experimenting a lot. Really just trying everywhere and trying to learn as much. I really didn't have anyone, showing me out there. I had one buddy who was kind of starting out at the same time, but he doesn't really fish anymore. He didn't get into it like I did, but yeah, it kind of grew from there.
So everything you pretty much taught yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, a lot of observation too, just observing other guys and learning as much as you can from what you see, where people are fishing, what they're using. But yeah, I didn't have a mentor or anything, And talking to Paulie a lot, I would say, but obviously he wasn't fishing out there.
Hey, everyone. This is Victor Lucia, founder of the Brooklyn Fishing Club and host of this podcast. If you've ever wanted to learn how to fish in New York City, now's the time. The fall season is heating up and the striped bass are heading our way. We've only got a few more weeks of Brooklyn Fishing Club lessons before the cold sets in. These sessions are the real deal, hands-on, local, and unforgettable. You'll learn how to cast, bait, tie knots, and read the water while fishing classic New York City spots like the East River, Rockaway, and Coney Island. If you're interested in freshwater, we can hit Prospect Park in Brooklyn or head to one of the reservoirs just north of the city. You can book a 4-hour lesson for up to 2 people. Each lesson includes tackle, bait, lunch, plus photos and videos to remember the day. Reserve your spot with just a $100 deposit at brooklynfishingclub.com under the fishing lessons section. Once the weather turns, we'll shift gears to ice fishing lessons this winter, followed by our spring open water sessions, and both are already filling up. Don't forget, BFC members get 20% off, so don't miss your chance to up your game and catch some fish with me before the season ends. Do you have a lure that you used when you first started out that you still use religiously today?
As in a type of lure or actual physical same lure?
Yeah, like the type of lure.
Yeah. I would say I started off throwing a lot of darters, and I threw more eels back then too, live eels. I threw them pretty hard starting out the first year or two, and I kind of shifted away from them just because logistically I was fishing, 5 nights a week. It was just too much to maintain live eels that much. But I still do it, especially in the summer, live and rigged deals. But no, I'd say I pretty much start out with a darter out there, and that one's pretty simple to learn. It's not a big learning curve, just swimming it really. And I still it's one of my favorite go-to plugs out there, Super Strike Darter now. Still.
Nice. So you've moved away from the eels, you said?
Yeah, eels are great, especially in the summer. You get those fish in Montauk in the summer doldrums where for some reason they're really only going to hit eels or like sluggo type soft plastics. So pretty much every summer I'm using rigged eels, live eels, but I don't use them year round like I used to when I started out because I don't know, that's what you hear, like Montauk eels. There was guys out there that only threw eels, and but you start learning the lures and you start realizing what some things are easier to fish, work better in certain scenarios, and obviously eels aren't good for every spot out there.
Yeah, right. How thick is your wetsuit for this type of fishing?
So I do a 2-piece wetsuit. So it's like a Farmer John type, where it's like you're like an overall neoprene is the one piece Farmer John, and then it's like a step through jacket. It's kind of like a bodysuit. It's hard to envision, but it's Henderson. It's made by Henderson Thermoprene. It's called. But you can combine them. So I'll do like 3 and 3 usually is a good year round wet through. It's 3 millimeter bottom, 3 millimeter top. But like right now, last night I was with a 5 millimeter top and 3 millimeter under. So you can mix and match them. But I never really go. I don't have any like 1 mils or anything like that. It's just even in the summer I get away with the 3 millimeter.
Nice. How far out are you going on these missions? Are we talking like a half mile off the beach? Like, how far are you pushing the limits?
So there's really a limited amount of like outer rocks in Montauk. Like each reef, each point out there will have its 1 or 2 rocks that are pretty much the furthest you could even possibly fish. But we're not talking hundreds of yards. We're talking you get a couple of them that are over 100 yards. But it's got to be flat 1 to 2 foot for those rocks really. But a lot of it's just wetsuiting, hitting rocks that you obviously couldn't fish in waders, but it's not necessarily, a triathlon swim out there. It's just, you have so much more of an advantage with the wetsuit, even if you're not swimming really far out. But
how much recon are you doing at low tide to find these rocks? Is that something that you do?
yeah, so that was a lot of that obviously in the beginning, or if you're first learning a spot. But you find them at low tide. You find them when there's a little bit of a swell. You could see them, in the trough of the swells. But once you know them, you know them. It's not like there's really much undiscovered rocks out there. They're pretty much a handful on each reef, like I said. But no, I've pretty much done the recon. Some of them you still gotta play around with, kind of triangulating the bluffs behind you and trying to match up where you think the rock is, because a lot of these outer rocks are not ever exposed really, even at low tide. So you'll still take a while to find these, especially if there's a moon tide or something. But as far as where they actually are and what's out there, pretty much I've done the recon for that already.
That's cool. That's good. Have you noticed an increase in the amount of sharks out there?
Yeah, so when I first started out, it wasn't sharky at all. I would say like 2019 or so, I had my first bite off, small bass bit, and that was in like August. And kind of every summer from 2019 on, just got like progressively worse with bite offs and sharks. And you talk to there's a few old timers that'll say there's always sharks around, but the guys that are really fishing now and can compare, they'll tell you that, it's obviously a lot more now. But yeah, 2020, 2021, 2022, real bad summers, between July and August, where there's a couple peak weeks where you're getting bit off every night on the south side and you're seeing them. And sometimes there's little feeding frenzies if there's, blood in the water, or if one gets bit in half. And it's just, it never used to be like that, especially when I started out. And it's definitely a problem. It's not year round, but I'd say from first week of July to first week of September, there's a good shot at, getting fish bit off. You can't stringer fish anymore. Even eel bags on the side is kind of risky swimming out. And you got to pick your rocks. I'll swim out year round out of rocks, but really in the summer, you got to be careful and pick some rocks that aren't too like, I don't know, submerged, let's say, where you're fishing and you're waist deep the whole night on top of the rock, let's say.
Yeah.
You're just going to have a problem landing the fish. It's going to be, a threat to getting bit there.
It's crazy, man. What do you think the biggest striper is that you've gotten taxed?
I had one that I got bit. It had 2 bites, bit the tail off and one in the stomach, and I weighed it, and it was like 33 pounds then. So it was definitely probably a 40. That was one of the biggest ones, but they like those slot size, like 20 pound bass slot size. They love biting those down to the head.
Wow. So they have a preference.
Yeah. And for some reason, they don't really like the heads either. Like I've sat there on a rock where I'm kind of like, my feet are out of the water, so I don't got to worry about it. I'll have one bit off and I'll kind of just observe, and they'll just keep coming back. There'll be 2, 3, 4 of them. And then once they get to that head, kind of, they just go off.
That's crazy. Kind of wow. So yeah, it seems like it's definitely impacting your fishing game a little bit, considering, some of those rocks seem like they're kind of far out there. I don't know. I don't know if I would be swimming out there if I were you, man. It's crazy.
Yeah. There's definitely some far rocks out there.
So let's talk about tactics a little bit. So walk me through like a season. How do they change from the spring through the summer to the fall? I know that's kind of like a big question, but what do you start out fishing with in the spring usually?
So the fish will kind of like, obviously every month there's 2 moons in every month, and each moon will kind of mark a different, I don't know, like checkpoint for where they are as far as Montauk, at least. Early in the spring, I'll start further down, like on the western south side, they call it, closer to town. And that's just for whatever reason, that's the first spot the bass will usually hit, closer on the south side. And really from there, you just kind of follow them throughout it's hard to explain. They have different patterns of like different bait they're on. Spring will be like juvie porgy sometimes. And then like right now, a good moon is the October full moon for juvie weakfish. So you're kind of following bait patterns of what they're on. You're looking for the bite. And I'll record obviously every month of every year, and I'll look back at where they should be. But it's pretty much just tracking them from the westernmost south side through the point onto the north side and back again throughout the whole year. There'll be times I don't fish the north side for 2 months in the summer or something, just because that's not where they're set up. And then there'll be times where I won't fish a certain spot on the south side for 2 months because that's just not where they're set up. So you kind of got to track them along, and that's the beauty of Montauk is there's so many different types of structure, so many different spots that are even far apart, and that it's almost like a whole different place.
Does it get really crowded out there when you're on these fishing missions? Like, do you show up to some spots and you're like, damn, I can't fish here, there's guys here?
It does get like that, but not as bad as you think. Like right now, Columbus Day weekend, there's a good amount of guys out there. Everyone always loves Columbus Day weekend for whatever reason. They try and fish those fall nor'easters like we got coming up. Spring isn't that bad, and summer you'll get a good amount of wanderers in the summer. Whereas when I first started out, really not many people fish the summer, but people are starting to catch on that the bass will kind of set up there throughout the whole year and set up residency out there. But as far as like what I'm doing, not a lot of guys swim out to these further rocks. So if I'm, there's obviously etiquette of not swimming out in front of people, but if I'm careful enough, I shouldn't ever be coming to a spot with people on outer rocks where I was trying to go,
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it too. There's only so many rocks out there. Like I hear horror stories of these guys fishing, the inlets up island where they roll up and there's 40 trucks and 40 guys next to each other. It's like, what do you do there? But Montauk, you go to the south side, there's only X amount of places, rocks to stand on, and 90% of those outer rocks are not going to be on. So I'm never too worried about that.
That's good. That's definitely a plus from
Yeah.
risking it all and swimming all the way out there.
Yeah.
A lot of the really good surfcasters I've talked to, they've dealt with this problem where they get followed. Their truck gets made,
Yep.
and next thing they know, there's some guy on their tail. Do you deal with that too?
Yeah, I'll deal with that, especially in these tournaments. Especially when Paulie's was open and when it was kill tournaments and weighing in and stuff. Pretty much you catch a 40-pound fish and the next day the whole community knows about it, that you're first place or whatever it is. So you definitely get guys, following your truck, random guys, but even guys in the tournament, your friends, your buddies that are not like, yeah, like that aren't like your close boys, but guys, in the tournament, they'll sometimes they'll be on the rock before you get there the next day. They'll know somehow.
That's crazy.
So
that's crazy. Yeah. How do you deal with that? How do you shake them?
it's hard. I used to yell, I used to curse. And one thing I learned in Montauk is Montauk's so small that like anytime I've ever turned around and yelled at someone in the night or cursed or something, it always comes back to me the next day of who it was, or it's never just a random one-off. It's always like, oh, I heard you yelled at him, or I heard he, or I'll get a message on Instagram, be like, yo, was that you I tangled? I'm sorry. Like it's not even worth it anymore. So
yeah, that's funny. Wow. Oh man, I guess it's a sign of success though if they're following you, So take it for what you can. So you've entered a lot of tournaments, right?
Yeah. So, I'm pretty competitive. I did, played a lot of baseball growing up and, some football, and I just love competition. And when Paulie told me about, the Surf Masters, which is pretty much like a locals tournament out in Montauk, he helped get me into that tournament, and it kind of went from there. I really got into it. I loved competing against. There was a couple heavy hitters out there that are still heavy hitters. Like some of the wetsuiters, John out there, and I just love, testing yourself against the best of the best, especially when it's like a lineup where you're actually fishing, right next to the guys for the biggest fish.
Yeah.
But a lot of these like local tournaments, they're like the Surfmasters are like 3 months long. So it's kind of an endurance thing in my mind, is how many nights can you grind it out for that one fish. And then you get the weekend tournaments out in Montauk where it's just like 3 days. But I kind of love it all, whether it's, it used to be kill, now it's length and weight and everything like that. But
yeah,
I'm into it.
Did you win the Surf Masters?
I won this. There's two. There's a spring and a fall each year.
Uh-huh.
I won this year's spring. I've won
Nice.
I think I've won 8 of them now.
Hell yeah, bro. It's awesome.
I'm first place right now as we speak in the fall one, 34 pounds, which is not a
Hell
monster,
yeah.
but
Man, that's
you'd
a
be
nice
surprised.
fish from the surf, man. Come on. That's beautiful. What's your PB from the surf?
51.
Damn.
Yeah, so
That's crazy.
So that's obviously the big number you're always after. Had a lot of 40s, and a couple years ago, I was touching on that topwater daytime bite a little earlier, where I just got into some fish in June on the south side, and it started off with like 30-pound fish, which is obviously great, and then it was like a 40, and then from there each like sunset and sunrise, I was getting like another 40, a 42, a 43. And by this time, like I was saying, I was entering some of these fish. So there was a couple guys in the tournament that, found out about it. Actually, the guy who runs the tournament, Mike Capola, is a really nice guy, really nice dude. He kind of found out. So me and him were fishing the same bite together. And he had a couple 40s, and it just kind of kept building. I've never seen a bite like it, because it lasted through from June 6th through Father's Day, June 20th, something like that, whereas almost every day. And finally, I think it was the June 19th, it was the morning of the moon, just fucking monsters came through. I had a 51, and the guy Mike right next to me had a 48. We got a picture of them together, and it's just crazy on top waters.
That's wild.
Obviously that you do the night missions, the night recon, and that's how you want to get your big fish. But that beautiful, it was a glass calm morning next to other competitors, next to buddies, and just exploding on a top water. That's how I wanted it. So it went perfect in my mind, having that fish.
It must have been awesome to see it swim off too.
I know.
I'm getting hyped just thinking about it. It was glass, it was flat calm, and they were busting on top water. Oh my god.
It was just the craziest thing I've seen, and it was
so cool, man.
And it was kind of from the outer rocks. It was kind of like a wetsuiting deal too, but a lot of guys ended up finding out about it, and some wader fishermen just couldn't get out there or whatever it was. But I obviously had it, dialed in since the first day, because I found it, and it just, everything worked out. But they were on squid or something, that it was just monster fish every morning on fucking top waters.
And how long did the bite last for? Like about a week?
It was like, it was like 2 weeks. It was like June 6th to June 20 something. It was through like two moons, and it was incredible. There was like a little bit of a lull in between the moons where there was a couple mornings, but I gotta look at my notes. I had something like 9 or 10 over 40, and the 51 just on that bite.
That's crazy.
I know.
Oh my god.
It's fucking.
Let's circle back to the tournaments real quick. What was your first big win?
So my first win, I wouldn't call it big. It was actually a 30-pound fish. So I entered in like 2016 when I kind of started hitting it hard as the first tournament I entered. I don't think I placed anything that year. And then the following year, 2017, just a tough fall, one of those tough falls out in Montauk where you almost guys will enter, even 20-pound fish at the time of year because for some reason you'll get a storm like what's coming up this week, and all of a sudden the season's done out there. Everything gets blown out, and you wish you entered fish earlier. But this was a pretty shitty fall. It was towards the end of October, and I was just grinding it out, like fishing obscure spots on the south side, just like shit that I'd never even fished before. And I was able to get a 30 or 31-pound fish. I waded in at Paulie's in like 4 a.m. It was still dark out. It was cool, and ended up holding because the tournament runs till Thanksgiving, end of November, and it held all the way till then. And it wasn't a monster, but I was stoked. And back then, that was my first year or my second year doing it. That back then they still had like award ceremonies, so we went to like Montauk Downs, like the country club, and we had these cool award ceremonies and plaques and everything, and it was a cool experience.
That sounds cool. That's where you got addicted, though. You're like, I want to win more of these.
I know. I'd get so hard headed that they started knowing me out there that, even if you have a fish, you're not safe, just because I would fish, especially back then. I was in college. I was scheduling, 3 days a week or, off 3 days. So I was fishing so many fucking nights that I was bound to hit something.
Yeah, right.
And, one funny story is, I think maybe the third year, maybe 2018 or so. You ever meet Nick Bikino at all? He was a big Montauk guy.
No.
He moved up north a little bit, but he was a big Montauk local. He had a 43 or something early on in the tournament. And usually when that happens, everyone gets discouraged because now you got to beat a 40 through whatever it is. And I just kept grinding it out. And the last fucking night, the last night of the tournament, like July 7th or something like that, nothing else was coming up, and he was pretty much going to win. And I got into a bite, and I ended up catching a fucking 43. And this was back when you could kill them. And I brought it to Paulie's, and it ended up being like a couple ounces short of his. But it was just a fucking great experience. He was waiting for me at Paulie's because he heard I caught one, and it was just cool. I was happy for him, but it was close. I really thought I did it at the last minute.
Oh man, so close.
Shit like that just is fun, a lot of guys will, guys are 50-50 about tournaments. A lot of guys say it's like, not necessary or not the reason they fish or not what fishing's about. And then, the other half is like me. It's just like, it's fun. I'm not trying to, prove anything or like puff my chest. I just love competition, like Bassmaster guys, they do it all the time because they love fishing for bass and they love competing. And, and especially now where it's catch and release and you can do it properly with videos and stuff that, no, you don't got to kill fish for this, glory of a tournament. So I think it could get popular again. There's a few tournaments that are taking foot out there in Montauk that I think are helping popularize it again. But
are you competing in the tournament for Alberta this weekend?
No, I'm actually not. I just saw a post from someone today, maybe Pete or something about that. I didn't even know about
Pete.
it.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool though. It's good. It's good cause.
I'm going down to Florida next week. I'm going to try to see him, see how he's doing.
So, is he still in the hospital or?
No, he's he's at a friend's place, but it's been really tough. It's not been easy at all what he's going through right now, and I know he's fucking, probably super pissed that he can't fish because this guy is so addicted to fishing. Like I've never seen anybody that has literally dedicated their life to it like he has. Like it is his life, So for him to not be able to get out there, I'm sure it's probably fucking with his head. So try to see him, see how he's doing, and hopefully the tournament goes well today. I'm leaving for Florida tonight, so I couldn't take part in it. But yeah, man. So when did the kill tournament stop? Around what year was everybody like, we're not doing that anymore?
It was pretty much when the slot limit.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, right. I think a couple tournaments like the Fisherman, the Montauk Classic, they might have had a year or two after that where it was like the biggest, like the heaviest slot fish that you killed, under 35 inches or whatever. But after that, it was just kind of like, let's just catch and release if you do it properly,
Yeah. And you take part in the Surf Rats Ball too with Bill?
Yeah, so I'll always enter that, but it's hard because I believe it's the bill stipulations that you can't enter a fish in 2 tournaments. So I'm always that time of year fishing for the Spring Surf Masters in Montauk too. So if I get one, it's always for I'll always enter it in the Surf Masters.
Yeah.
And then there's also the stipulation of no swimming.
For bills?
Yeah.
For surf rats?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's weird because a lot of guys will be in wetsuits for the photos, but they say they don't swim.
Interesting. Very interesting.
I know. And I take it pretty seriously too. So like if I would ever really get on a good bite that I think could enter in the Surf Masters, I'd put on waders or something like that just to be transparent to Bill. But the guys know me so much of swimming that I don't even want to deal with that if catching a big fish in a wetsuit. And so
yeah, I hear you. So what do you think of these proposed regs for the bass that everybody's talking about?
It's hard. They obviously have to do something. I don't think no target is the way to go because in my mind, I'm a strong proponent that the reason people care so much about bass and even giving regulations, creating regulations for bass is because people love to catch them. There's obviously a culture and sport around it that if, you get whole generations of people that aren't even targeting them, like no one's going to give a shit anymore. Like, the reason people want to protect them is because they love catching them.
Yeah. Oh man, I don't know. What would you do if they hit you with the no target?
I don't know, man. I would take Pete up on all these offers to go down to Florida and finally do tarpon.
Just throwing the towel on the bass. I mean, you already got the 51 pounder, so whatever.
Yeah, right.
No, I know you want a 60 though.
Yeah, they're out there.
They're out there, man. They're definitely out there. What did you get that 51 on? What were you using for that?
That was chartreuse wooden pencil popper.
Hey everyone, this is Victor Lucia, founder of the Brooklyn Fishing Club. If you've been listening for a while and want to be part of what we're building, now's the time to join the club. For just $200 a year, members get serious perks. 20% off all shop purchases, expeditions, and fishing lessons, plus a free hat and t-shirt when you sign up. You'll also get 1 free guided trip with me, invite-only club events, access to VIP destination adventures, and exclusive online seminars with special guests from the fishing world. It's more than a membership. It's your all-access pass to the Brooklyn Fishing Club community. Spots are limited, so head to brooklynfishingclub.com and join today. Brooklyn Fishing Club, where New York City goes fishing. How do you know which colors to throw, or is it kind of like you just test them out and then if one hits, you keep using it?
It's a lot of trial and error out there. I'm very keen on like lighter colors. Even on dark moons, I'll be using like oranges and greens and stuff like that. It's really just what you have success with out there. People obviously they'll catch a monster on dark purple or a couple big fish, and then they'll use that more and they'll catch more on it. There is instances in which color matters, but I've never really seen it where it's like you didn't have the color, you're fucked. You're
Yeah.
not going to catch. I have my certain special colors I like, but that's just preference.
Is there one technique that's like your go-to? Like, are you like a diehard bucktailing guy, or
No,
yeah,
I'm big on swimming plugs, like bottles and darters and needlefish out there. A lot of guys don't really know how to fish a needlefish just because they don't have confidence in it, because it's not that hard. But once you really get a rhythm for working it, I kind of just work it like a bucktail basically. And you get enough fish on under your belt on them, you realize how versatile they are and what different conditions you could use it on, and just the profile itself out in Montauk is just like one of the best lures out there. So I like needlefish.
that's cool. And do you have a color that's your go-to?
Yeah, definitely going to be those light greens, green over white type of deal.
Gotcha.
And as far as technique, one thing I do that I feel like maybe sets me apart sometimes is I'll fish like significantly slower than everybody else, like boring slow, as slow as you can. And I've been in lineups where everything else is the same, and for some reason I'm catching more, and I attribute it to the speed. I think a lot of the time, a lot of time people are like yanking in their darters too fast. And
so how did you learn that? Because that's not something that you just like pick up on. Like it must have taken a minute to realize, you know what, I'm just going to slow all the way down and do it like this.
Yeah. Just I guess from the get go, learning about bass, you hear like slow and low. They're not like bluefish, obviously, and just enough times doing that of me catching a big fish or two, and I don't know when it clicked, but it clicked that this is something that's obviously drawing in the bigger fish. Yeah.
So that's really interesting. So one thing I like to ask surfcasters about when I talk to them is reading the water and how you do that, especially when you're in a situation where the water, it's like a nor'easter and like the water is going nuts and it all looks the same. It's just white water. Do you know how to read it then because you've done the recon and you know the spot, you know what's going on under there, or how does that work?
Yeah, so a lot of fishing in Montauk is going to be your rocks and boulder fields, which are hard structure that's always there. So I do know a lot of the setups already out there. Where I'm going to fish on the north side, the south side. I know what's shallow, what's deep, what's X. But when you're on the sand beaches out there, the sand beaches anywhere, you do need to kind of know prior to a storm what the setup's like, because like you said, you go down in a nor'easter and it's all white water. But if you scout that beach maybe a week or two prior, and you could see where those bars are in the calmer water, that helps. But just reading the white water, obviously where it cuts out, and like I said, on the south side, it's mostly permanent structure that you kind of just know, by now, at least.
Yeah. So do you keep a fishing log?
Yeah, I'm pretty anal about it. I'll do every trip and pretty specific details about every trip. And I also feel like that gives me an edge sometimes because, I talk to a lot of guys who are a little lackadaisy about a log, whether it's just like they use a picture in their phone or like a memory or, something not really,
Not legit.
permanent. Yeah, as their logs.
Yeah.
Maybe they're just not as serious about fishing, but I feel like it doesn't, it doesn't translate. But when I take, every detail down and compile it over the years, it gives me something to work with. Like right now, we're in the second week of October, and I'm looking. I have my log in my phone in my notes, so I'm looking in my notes right now of October of 23, October of 24. 6 days before this moon, what was going on in Montauk. And usually your last 2 years is what I say is your best intel because you go too far back and shit's not the same really. But
Yeah, that makes sense.
there's been a lot of times where I've caught a big fish or won a tournament because I've gone down to a spot that I specifically, noted the year prior on the same exact like phase of the moon, and it, repeated itself. There's been many times where, even by the hour of the tide, if I didn't write that stuff down, you'd either have to fish the whole night or just wing it or whatever. But there's been times where, the same exact tide a year or two later, 6 days before the October new moon or whatever, they were here on the north side. And
Yeah.
even if it happens once, or twice, it could be enough to catch fish of a lifetime because of it.
Yeah. And it definitely helps build confidence to the point where you probably feel like you're going to catch every time you go out, right?
Yeah, it got at least a good starting point.
Yeah.
Montauk, I will say that the past few years the fishery's pretty bad. That there's been stretches where there's not even a bass caught like in 2 weeks out there or something. Everyone's like scratching their heads, but for the most part, I have a good starting point every week of every month of every year, pretty much.
Nice, nice. Do you have a crew of guys that you share intel with, or do you keep everything pretty hush hush to yourself?
I try to keep most of it hush hush, but out there, it's such a commitment to fish out there, especially for the guys that commute like 2 hours or an hour and a half like I do, that you start seeing a couple of guys grind out there, and you just you naturally talk to them, you share intel, because it's like you feel like they've earned that right. They're out there just as much as you. So there'll be a few guys that if you're seeing them, you're talking to them. If you don't see a guy in like a month, you're not reaching out to him and being like, hey, they've been at Camp Hero or whatever. You're basically talking with the guys you're seeing.
Yeah, that's cool. That's
Yeah.
cool. Are there any guys that you pull up and you see him and you're like, God damn it, this guy? Or do you get along with everybody?
I get along with everybody, but there's a handful of guys that will swim out and wetsuit and are in the tournament that when I see their truck, their truck before I get there, I know they're possibly where I want to fish.
Yeah.
And it is that damn feeling that you might even want to go to a different spot, or you get nervous the whole night. It's a full moon that guy's there and he might catch the winning fish, instead of you.
So how do you go about in these catch and release tournaments where you need a photo and you're out there on this rock? How the hell do you even get the picture?
Yeah, so there's good instances where if you do have a buddy, or a lot of the time, a lot of the guys in the tournament are like locals and they're out there anyway, that it works out. But it's a lot of times it's swimming it in, getting
Oh,
to shore,
man.
taking it. Yeah.
You ever got
And you'd be
sharked while you were
surprised.
swimming it in?
No. I might have gotten bumped. I think I've gotten bumped by a shark swimming a fish in, but
Damn.
I've never had one taken like when it was in my hand.
That sounds
no.
like the sketchiest time of the whole thing, swimming it in.
I know.
And when you
So
say
kinda
swimming
just,
it
like,
in, where are you holding the fish while you're swimming it?
I just bear hug him usually if it's like a 40. If it's a monster fish, you kind of just get like a hand on the lip and just like hold it around like a football kind of. And I mean, you'd be surprised at the end of the day, the fish is in the water the whole entire time, until it gets to shore. So,
wow,
that's
crazy.
And then you got to do a lot of times you got to do like a self timer, shitty prop up with the cell phone,
and hope it doesn't fall in the ocean.
Yeah, and they come out pretty shitty.
Oh my god! But it's like as long as you're holding up the right like hand signal, you're good, right? Like,
yeah, or we get a tag sometimes too that says like
okay.
2025, whatever.
Nice. So let me hear a little bit about the USA surf fishing team that you're a part of.
Yeah. So the coach, captain, president, Ben, this guy Ben, reached out to me sometime over the winter, and I never really heard of it. I don't think a lot of people have heard of it. It's kind of just taking off. He said, "You want to be part of the team? We're looking for new guys, new recruits." I said, "Yeah, for sure." It's basically U.S. Angling is this like the higher like federation that oversees all these different types of fishing, and you'll have there's a Team USA for kayaking, there's a Team USA for bass fishing, like freshwater bass, and that one's kind of popular because it's comprised of like the Bassmaster guys, like Jacob Wheeler, Kevin Van Dam, those type of guys.
Yep.
They just won gold in South Africa, actually, but
yeah, I saw one of the
same,
guys we've had on the show, Ott Defoe. He was over there with them.
Oh yeah, he was.
Yeah, we've
awesome.
had a few really big Bassmaster guys on. Yeah, sorry. Side note. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, no. So it's the same federation. It's just obviously theirs is a little more popular at the moment because they've got more coverage. But this surf fishing is team. They've been doing Pan American Championships, which is pretty much the Americas only. A few years now in Costa Rica, mainly the tournaments have been held, and this year kind of like they made it a mission, whether it was our team captain Ben or just the federation in general, to try and get more traction. And he really got a good group of guys and got a lot of sponsors for our team and really helped get the ball rolling. And we gave it hell down there and we got silver, but we got a lot of notoriety and a lot more things in the works.
Definitely.
And it's definitely it's exciting what it could come to, because it's a no-brainer in my mind. Like surf fishing can be just as competitive as bass fishing. We had the same thing, judges on the beaches, recording everything, and done right, I think it could be popular too.
Definitely. They have this thing, Major League Fishing has it, called Score Tracker, where they don't bring like a bag of fish anymore to the weigh-in. It's just like they have the little iPad on the boat, they log the catch, they release the fish, and it's just the score is like
cool.
Updated in real time. So you watch like different anglers get bumped up or bumped down or whatever.
Really?
So yeah, I think you're right, man. It is a no-brainer. But I think the next meetup should be in Montauk, not in Costa Rica.
I know. I think it could get there eventually if there's certain waivers signed about rocks and getting hurt. But,
right.
I think we're definitely trying to, without saying anything, definitely trying to get a new location next year, and yeah, that's what I'll say. But it's definitely exciting.
So walk me through like competing? Like, what was it like? You get there, and then how do you pick like where to fish? You're fishing in this foreign country, you've never fished it before. What are you just reading the water the same way you would if you were out in Montauk? Like, walk me through that a little bit.
So last year was in Costa Rica as well on the same stretch of beach. So about half our team was experienced from last year, so they had something to work with. But pretty much the setup is you got 2 days, 2 10-hour days broken up into 2 5-hour blocks. So 4 5-hour blocks on a kilometer stretch of beach. One end is like a river mouth where this river meets the sea, and then it just goes a kilometer down the beach pretty much, flagged off. And you really got the whole area to work. It's all sand, so it's all soft structure that, looked different than last year apparently. But you kind of just make a game plan. Everyone on our team had different skill sets. We had, guys that were really, good finesse fishermen, light tackle for snook and stuff like that in Florida. A couple of guys like me and Dante from the Northeast that just, we never even fished for these type of fish. Jacks, tarpon, snook, never fished for them. But, we know what we're good at, pushing out, fishing hard. And, we were designated to kind of fish this one outer bar for jacks, basically. I'll step back. There's 3 different fish, really, tarpon, snook, and jack, that make up the points. They go by, you get points for catching one, and then like every centimeter above some certain length. And tarpon obviously would be the most points. Jack was the least points. Snook was the second amount of points. But by the end of the tournament, there was like, our guy had like, one of the guys on our team, Caleb, had the biggest snook and one of the only snook caught. So it was pretty much a tournament of jacks. You can get the most and the biggest jacks. And by the end of the tournament, it was a pretty slow tournament, and everything was coming up on this one river mouth, on this outer bar, this far outer bar, 100, 200 yards. And that everyone just conglomerated towards there. So if you see any of those pictures, it's like 50 guys pushing out on this one outer bar. That's because by the end of the tournament, it's like the rest of the beach wasn't producing. And like when the horn went off for the last block or whatever, it's just like everyone's running to this fucking bar. But it's a cool experience. And basically just bring the fish in, by length. There's judges right there. And that's how it goes.
That's cool. What were the other teams like?
They were good. I mean, one of them was Costa Rica itself, which is obviously a home field advantage. They, they know it very well. A lot of just Central and South American teams, and they have their their own skill sets too. They're pretty dialed in on what they were fishing for. A lot of them I don't think were that comfortable with swimming or whatnot. They had a lot of life jackets on, some of these guys, which I think hindered them a little bit because they couldn't really push out as far. They're a little, life jackets pushing up against them.
Fishing with life jackets on?
Yeah. So basically it's just, we just fish with shorts and a long sleeve,
Were you laughing at them, calling them googans?
No, I don't think they would understand it either. It was big language barriers, such that me and a couple of the guys were able to get further out than anyone, and I was getting tangled a good amount. I got a couple hooks in my shirt, stuff like that.
Oh man!
And everyone's cool. Nothing was malicious, but I couldn't even turn around and say please stop, because it's just no one was understanding. It was a language barrier, but
damn.
But yeah.
So everybody was fishing pretty close to each other, like right on top of each other.
Towards the end of the tournament, yeah, when
people were getting desperate at the end there.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But that one outer bar is pretty. I fish rough water in Montauk, obviously, but this it was pretty pounding out there. There was some bombs coming over that bar, and it's just like there's no holding a rock or anything. You're kind of just like chest deep and just, you know, duck diving all these waves, and they were short period waves too. So it's just one after another, and it was 90, 100 degrees out, and it's just a different type of endurance fishing.
That's crazy. Yeah, you're just in sand, so there's nothing to grip with your feet. Probably just getting pushed around.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's wild. So what does it take for you to not go in, like in terms of conditions? Like, do you ever pull up to a spot and you're just like, I can't do this right now. This is too much. Or are you like, I'm going to push it?
As far as Montauk or just in general? Like,
yeah, in general, Montauk.
Yeah. As far as like holding rocks and swimming, there's certain conditions you roll up and you're like, you just can't hold that rock, or you're just, not going to be able to. But there's a lot of times where it's just like borderline, like you can hold the rock, but it's going to be a long, shitty night, and you do it anyway, and it's just like up and down, up and down, up and down, like hours and hours, like getting wiped off, and those are tough nights. Sometimes It's better off when it's just too gnarly out, you can't even go out, so you just stay close in. But those borderline nights, where you're getting tossed around is they're long.
Have you ever had any close calls out there?
Not really, because the south side of Montauk is you get good current, but it's not gonna, there's no rips that are pulling you out. As far as the north side is kind of like the Block Island Sound. It does rip around the lighthouse and kind of pulls outwards. So there's been a few sketchy times where you get like a moon tide on these outer rocks on the north side that if you get swept off, you got to kind of be creative to get back in. There's a threat of getting like pulled out into the, to the ocean.
Yeah.
But no, I never really lost my way. I've been lost in the fog sometimes. Gets tough out there.
That sounds crazy.
So, yeah, we'll get in the summertime and late spring. You'll get fog a lot out there, and on those outer rocks on a calm night, can't really tell which way the waves are even coming in, and you can get disoriented, definitely.
Yeah, that sounds really sketchy. Do you have any superstitions?
I'm pretty superstitious in general. There's definitely, you've heard all the stories of Montauk, Camp Hero, Stranger Things, all that.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
There's some, like, I feel like there's some little bit of energy or something out there. So I get a little superstitious sometimes.
What makes you say that?
I don't know. It's just, I've never really seen anything, but it does feel a little different out there, especially when you're by that Camp Hero radar tower area.
Really? Like something's going on over there?
Yeah, just a little, just a little weird.
Have you ever seen anything crazy in the sky that you couldn't explain?
Nothing in the sky. There's this one wacky photo I got of me. I was fishing in front of the radar tower, pretty much Camp Hero. I had like a 44. I had a good fish, and I was with this guy, John Bruno, and he took a bunch of pictures, and a couple of them came out pretty blurry. And I was looking at them after the fact, and there was like definitely some like weird figure in one of them.
What?
Yeah, I'm not really like, I don't believe shit like that until I see it, but it's a weird, like, pretty weird figure.
In the background?
Yeah, like kind of like grabbing me. It's weird.
Oh my God, you got to send me this.
Yeah.
That could be the picture I use to promote the episode. You getting groped by some weird figure over at Camp Hero.
Literally, man.
Oh my God. That's crazy, man. Have you ever heard any like rumors from any of the other surfcasters out there about any crazy shit? Like,
well, yeah, like
area?
there's supposedly like this like I don't know, this being out there called Junior. It's weird. It's
Oh God, I got to hear
supposedly
about this.
yeah, it's I don't know. It's supposedly it's some being tied to the radar tower.
Named
I
Junior.
know a lot. Yeah, I remember we showed one of these pictures to one of the locals out there. I mean, that picture I was talking about, and he was like, "Oh, that's Junior, man." You know, so they're a little quirky out there. So I'm not really sure, but if you read the Montauk project, it talks a little bit about the guy Junior and what this guy has seen, and kind of a little based off some of the Stranger Things, what Stranger Things based a little bit off that stuff.
And he's still walking around out there.
Yeah.
That's
So,
crazy. I got to look into this.
yeah.
Oh my God. Do you ever get scared out there? You got no fear.
No, I don't really. You get, you got to move past it. There's a couple newer kids out there that are getting
Yeah.
into wetsuiting, and that's one of the biggest advices they ask from me about, like, just like going out at night, or like, aren't you afraid, or
Yeah.
whether it's sharks or
Right.
just
Yeah.
weird like Camp Hero shit, and you just eventually just stop thinking about it. It'll happen. Where you just maybe it won't. Maybe I just don't. Maybe I have a weird fear. Maybe I have a weird fear response, but I believe it. It will happen over time. If you keep fishing, you'll get over it.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my last questions is, what advice would you give to somebody who's going to start wetsuiting? Like what to look out for, what not to do, what would you tell them?
Yeah. Push your limits, but do it like gradually. Don't full send it, on the first time. Test your limits. Be be careful about rocks. People don't really think about rocks behind you. That's one way that people get hurt is in fishing shallower water. Actually, is getting knocked off a rock and get thrown into the jagged ones behind you. But luckily, wetsuiting, you're out there and you get knocked off, you're just thrown into like a pool. It's just deep water out there, obviously.
Yeah.
Cover your head if you're getting body, if a wave takes you and is like going to ride you all the way to the shore, cover your head. Be careful about sharks, no stringering fish. I wouldn't do eel bags anymore. A buddy of mine had a seal grab at his eel bag this spring. So, yeah. But just, definitely experiment and, use it to your advantage of fishing stuff that guys and waders can't fish. Pretty much if you see something, fish it. Pretty much, I like to fish where there's nothing in front of me that I could possibly, see that I could be fishing off of. If there is, then I go on it, So just, push your limits. And I say, like what I was touching on before too, keep a log. It's not just a wetsuiting thing, but keep a log, I would say. It really helps.
Definitely. And I didn't even ask you about this, but what kind of gear are you using?
Yeah, so it's plug bags with stainless steel grommets, stuff that doesn't rust, drain holes and stuff. Van stalls, obviously. I use MH rods, which are more heavy duty, especially if you're throwing eels. I use like an 11 MH. Good set of corker spikes. I use it's like an older model. I think it's one of the discontinued corker models. It's like pretty much it's just a sandal. It's like this hard rubber, like a tire, and the spikes are push-in spikes, and it's just an overshoe. You tie it over like a wetsuit booty, and I found that to be the least cumbersome with swimming. Guys still use like the sim boots, and they'll drill in like studs in the bottom of the felt, and it's just too like bulky and cumbersome. I'll just do like a surfer's booty with a pretty much just a piece of rubber on the spikes tied over it is the concept.
Oh, yeah.
Minimal stuff.
Hey, it works.
Yeah. Dive knife I would carry, and probably a blunt tip one so you don't stick yourself. That's pretty much it. Find a wetsuit that is comfortable with you and works with you. I like 2-piece because they're interchangeable, but stuff like that pretty much.
Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed this week's show and thanks for listening. If you haven't already, join the Brooklyn Fishing Club and become part of our crew. Members get 20% off all shop purchases, expeditions, and fishing lessons, plus a free hat and t-shirt when you sign up. It's only $200 a year. Head to brooklynfishingclub.com and sign up today. Brooklyn Fishing Club, where New York City goes fishing. So what's your end goal for this fall? Like what would you like to see happen before the winter sets in?
I'd like a good one more push of like really big fish, but you'd be surprised it's coming to an end for Montauk. For some reason, if you don't have since I started out, really, if you don't have your big fish by like the third week of October, your shot's pretty much minimal, going forward. Guys used to catch them through Thanksgiving, 40-pound fish, Halloween, 50-pound, but it's just not really like that anymore. So I got a couple more weeks left of grinding it, and I'd like to see another 40, but I'd also be happy with just winning with this 34-pounder.
Yeah, as long as it wins.
Yeah.
That's it, man. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. It was great having you, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I love talking about this stuff.
For sure. We'll definitely try to do a part 2 or something. We'll definitely get Dante on and we'll talk more about the future of Team USA surf fishing because, like you said, I think it's going to be big, man. I would definitely watch it. So
yeah,
I would definitely watch it. But yeah, man, I hope you have a good rest of the day and we'll talk soon.
Likewise, man. Safe trip to Florida.
Thanks, bro. Thank you. Yeah, I got to get to packing. I'll talk to you soon, bro.
Later, man. Have a good day.
You too, later.
Don't you walk on me.